Hello, everyone. Welcome to the seventh podcast of the YTCA, Teen Christian Association. My name is Nick,
My name is Theo.
My name is Ezra.
and we have a special guest with us today, Mrs. Pan. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, yeah, I'm Christine Fan, and I am actually Theo's aunt. I live in Chicago, well, in Oak Park, Illinois, which is just a suburb out of Chicago. And I'm happy to join and share whatever knowledge that I can to help with the cause.
Sounds great. We appreciate you coming. Yeah, we would like to give you a warm
Great.
welcome. And
Thank you.
so for those of you guys listening, if you guys want, we have an Instagram where we update about each of our podcasts. We have a website. If you guys want to check out anything that you guys have missed, any resources, we'll be linking it there. And yeah, I guess without further ado, we're going to be jumping into the topic. And today we'll be talking about depression. I know it's a very serious topic, but there's a lot of elements and sides to this. So yeah, I guess we can get started with that. So I guess the first thing we want to talk about is kind of the idea of what is depression. So I guess Theo, would you like to take over?
Right. Based on the internet, depression is like this long-term feeling of dejection or dispiritedness. I'm not exactly sure if that's right, but Miss Pan, could you elaborate on that? I know depressions it's really hard to explain. And could you give some input?
Yeah, and I think that that's exactly right, Theo. I mean, if you try to Google, a definition, it's anywhere from what you have, shared with us to, a financial depression or, so it is in the clinical world of psychology, they talk about clinical depression a lot, but I mean, that also doesn't apply to the general population, so I like to think of it as sort of a continuum of, it can range from, I think the general thing that we all sense depression to be is a feeling of sadness, but that can vary from the normal amount of sadness that you feel when you lose a pet or, you go through a breakup in a relationship to, something more serious, so where there might be a chemical imbalance in the brain that actually leads to depression as a disorder. And that is a more clinical, definition for that. So I think you can kind of bring it on a continuum of having sort of the blues or sadness to a more severe depression. And what I'm gathering that you are talking more about today is more applicable to kind of teen depression, right? Mm-hmm. So that can also range, from just kind of feeling down or blue to a constant or consistent feeling of sadness for more than just, a day or two. It's sustaining you for 2-3 weeks, months, right. So yeah.
Oh, interesting. So from what I'm getting from you is that there's a different range of depression. It isn't like a yes or no kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So in that case, then how does one, I guess, maybe diagnose depression if there's a spectrum kind of?
Yeah, I mean, and this is also an interesting question because it just depends on the person's perspective. Who is the person who's trying to assess it? Is it you as a friend? Is it you as a clinician? Is it you as a parent? Is it, so it sort of depends on who is the person sort of trying to figure out if their loved one or friend or someone is depressed. So if you're thinking about obviously during the pandemic, it's been really, really tough on especially your age range, because I think I have 3 young kids and I don't think it hits them as hard because they don't rely on the social aspects of things as much as you guys do. And so trying to make those connections through all of this, I think can lead to sort of that depressive feeling. I even forgot, like, also just assessing it for yourself. How do you assess if you are depressed yourself? And sometimes we don't know even that we are depressed, like we sense that there is this sort of feeling that you can't explain. And we don't know what to call it, but we just know that it's sort of like a pit in our stomach. Hold on a second. Sorry. Everett, what did I tell you? Okay.
So I think Mrs. Pan, I think that's a very great statement. I think it's important to realize that depression isn't just like one thing. Right? Depression is many things. I think that like I have not as severe as some other people, but I think personally I have felt sometimes it's just a really indescribable feeling within me. Like I guess it's a mixture of sadness and it's hard to describe. That's why I guess it's called indescribable. But I think those feelings, those are the kind of like the catalysts or like kind of the symptoms of a person kind of falling into that depression, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and it can come out like there's actually there is like a difference between like general adult depression, how that comes out, and how it manifests in teens as well. So I think like some things that I think about are like, does a sleep pattern change? Like sometimes people end up sleeping extra hours or like sleeping not enough hours, like they're staying up, all hours of the night, so it could be either way. It could be, like just get it really unmotivated, so it's like hard to get out of bed in the morning, or like just like we don't have to get dressed to go anywhere, so like are we our pajamas all day feeling kind of lethargic, like along with the obvious feelings of like sadness or hopelessness, like maybe you're having a hard time focusing or concentrating. Maybe you're having difficulty with making decisions, that should be normally easy for you. Being more irritable or like having mood swings, like, which is, relatively normal for teenagers actually. So, it's just, where do you draw the line of like, is it just a normal kind of irritable day, or is it like something else that I'm feeling that's going a little deeper, So
That's really great. Yeah. That makes it super hard to determine whether you're depressed or not. But I guess if it keeps happening for like weeks, you can kind of, I guess, tell that you're depressed.
Well, yeah. So, I mean, sometimes like a friend, an outsider can tell a little bit more, because sometimes it's harder to tell for yourself what's going on, but someone from the outside might notice like, like, hey, like, Theo, I noticed like you have not been really engaging as much with like your activities, or like, I noticed that you haven't been like really talking to your friends a lot, or like, your piano playing is really, your practices have really gone down, like,
Theo.
or maybe it's like your grades, like you stop caring about your grades as much, because you just don't see the point, like, so it can, I think I think it's more sort of like time. Like if you're feeling like that over a sustained period of time versus something where you feel like, oh yeah, I'm kind of getting the blues, but then like in another moment or the next day you kind of feel okay, like you're lifted out, your spirits are a little bit more lifted, even though we're all still going through it, and like you talk to a friend and you feel better, or like you're still able to enjoy some activities and feel joy from them, versus doing activities that you normally do that would bring you joy, and they are not doing that for you anymore. So that might be an easier way to assess it, for yourself or for somebody else.
Right. This kind of brings us to the next question. what are some common causes or like, I don't know, general things that cause depression? I know that there's several factors like a breakup or like a
Mhm.
really stressful day, but is it
Right.
possible to like categorize what those things like come
Yeah,
in?
I mean, definitely. I think that you hit on like some, true obvious ones, which are definitely, like just stressful events, events that, the loss of something, like it doesn't have to even be a person. Like obviously, when you're grieving the loss of somebody, somebody who might have died or passed, but like also, if you are going through a relationship breakup, that's also a loss. You're grieving a loss of something that you've had in your life, and I know that in the pandemic, like relationships are really tested during this time too. Or family relationships, like some of those are strained because we're with each other like 24 hours a day for 7 days a week, like, so that can be, very supportive, but also, a little bit trying for families who are feeling, more strain from if their family environment is already kind of stressful, um, it can come from, just like, or like even like, well, like school stress for you guys or work stress, like for parents or adults, or if you're working, I suppose, if you're teenagers working. But I assume more so school stress for you guys because you're still going through this thing where, whatever year you're in, if it's your first year in high school, like you're kind of like in this place where you would have been going through your first year like transition, if it's your senior year then you're trying to transition into college, and like, you're uh, trying to balance this like also continuing to excel in your studies and like make sure that you're taking your like exams and like, still doing well enough. So like there's still the pressure of school, but then you add in the pressures of it being remote and add in the pressures of not having the normal things that you usually have to cope with those things,
Right.
um could be like they a few, like it could be medications, like if some medications can create depression actually,
Oh, really?
um which is more probably more so with adults, like because I don't know necessarily if there's a lot of medication use, but if there's some drug abuse somewhere, then yeah, like that could contribute to it. um so there's some family history with it, if some genetics can play with into that as well. And then like esteem, like if sometimes if you feel like a low self-esteem in general, um that also can add to some like that feeling of like you're not worthy, or nobody likes me, or I don't have any friends, and now like I don't have anyone to reach out to, like, so all of those things can kind of be contributors, I guess, or factors in um, you know causing that depression feeling.
Right. Do you guys have any questions that you want to give
Oh,
her?
this is Pan. I know that you're a school counselor. Have you ever seen any like real life examples that like you're fine with sharing with us about like
Yeah,
depression?
definitely. So I was a middle school counselor. So I counseled
Mm,
seventh and eighth graders. Most of my students were seventh graders.
mm,
And they, it ran the gamut, but a lot of times, um, I remember it, you know, depression would come from like sometimes it was like the girlfriend boyfriend thing,
Oh,
sometimes it was like friendship things, because to I mean maybe very similar to how you feel, like this is your world, and I think to an adult, we forget that, we're kind of like, well, it's not a big deal, like, it's there's other more important things to worry about, you know, but we forget that like these things are very like they're very important to like those kids who, you know, that is their world. Like their peers and their relationships are like their world. So if you have like a you know, like a trauma or a break in that emotionally, like it really sends them into sort of a despair. So like, yeah, I think a lot of peer relationship issues and some of that, like in middle school, there's like a lot of he said, she said, and they're, you know, they're just starting to like notice like, you know, boys and girls, you know, and kind of like getting together like in like a girlfriend boyfriend manner. So like all that's kind of coming in, and then adolescence adds to that. So like there's a self-esteem part. People are finding themselves, you know. So I had some who were just trying to figure out who they were like in their identity, and then if they were already having some low self-esteem, then that would, you know, play into it. So, you know, like I had one particular student, I was letting Theo know that um, he he was having a really tough time with his grades. And I remember having a student teacher parent conference with him there, which was, I think, probably tough for him, you know, because it's basically you're sitting in front of all your teachers and then your parents and the counselor. And he was really struggling. But it turns out that like really it wasn't just about his grades. He was really struggling with something internally, and he ended up deciding to take his own life, which was very unfortunate. And so it can get that far, you know. And then what's a little bit difficult about that is, you know, once that happens, you know, like the whole school is traumatized by that. And then, you know, then as um, you know, as the adults in the school, and we're trying to make sure that other, like they call them like copycat, you know, kind of uh, instances where like maybe other students who are thinking about that may want to also take the same path because they think that that was the thing to do. But fortunately, that did not happen. But I do remember that was it took quite a toll on everybody, myself included. You know, I never thought as a middle school counselor, you know, they tell you that that can happen, but I never thought that that would be something that I would be dealing with personally with one of my own students. Um,
Right.
and then, you know, grief. I remember one student who lost her father. And,
Oh.
you know, yeah. So those are some examples that kind of reach the gamut, like you said, kind of on this,
Right.
like, you know, the normal teen stuff to, or tween stuff to, you know, the really, really hard stuff.
Yeah, and this kind of brings us to like, you know, some possible solutions to this, because it can get really bad if you don't like step up to deal with it. So do you have anything that could possibly help people who have like this?
Yeah. I mean, do you like, you mean as the
Like
person, as for yourself, or like as people trying to help, you know, another person, like, or both probably?
probably both,
I,
because I'm sure people will want to know how to help someone who's depressed, and also if they're depressed, help themselves.
yeah, I think maybe some key factors, if it's environmental or if it's like personal or anything like that, would be really helpful, especially during our pandemic season when we're all alone. Well, not completely alone, but isolated.
Yes, yeah, isolation. I mean, that is really that's a very good word to describe how people are feeling, because you're right. It's kind of like we are together going through this, but in an isolated manner. So I think the first thing is really just what we talked about, is just trying to recognize like that you might be depressed, you know, because if you don't realize that, then you don't know that you have an issue that you need to help yourself with, you know. And some people actually might be in denial of it, so being gentle with whoever you're trying to help, and also with yourselves. But number one is just the acknowledgement, recognizing that it is or may be happening. But like, so, like there, again, it's on this continuum. I feel like I keep saying that word wrong, but I think that's the right way to say it. So like, where if it's something like that's a little bit more mild, like you're just sort of like, down, but not completely like severely depressed, where like, so we'll start from like the more severe, because I think that's an easier, like, if you're severely depressed, then like you probably need to try to seek therapy, or you should maybe try to encourage someone to talk to a professional about it. Sometimes that might involve medications, but that's out of your realm. So I think that's number one, is just whoever really you feel like needs more professional help, leave it to the experts to help them with that. There are also hotlines, like there is a suicide hotline, which is 1-800-273-TALK. So if anyone's really feeling desperate, there's always someone to reach out to. So I think those, like at the extreme of, how can we help, people who are depressed. In terms of like, what you can do to help in general, like, exercise is actually really, really great for depression. They have done studies where like there was like a group that was doing a running thing, and then a group that was doing running and therapy, and then a third group that was just therapy. And they actually found that each group was equivalent in the amount that their depression was reduced.
Hey, oh,
Yeah.
Wow.
And so like, if you can think about that, I mean, the running pitted against therapy, it was just as effective. And then in another study they actually did, they did it with medication actually, and it was kind of the similar thing, where it was people who were on medication, people who were doing exercise and medication, and then people who were just doing exercise. And they found the same thing. Like they found, like, I think it was after 10 weeks or 16 weeks, where like they found that it was equivalent. Everyone in all the groups had reduced depression. But then when they followed up 10 months later, the exercise group actually had even more reduced depression, greater than those that were in the medication groups. So even if you're just doing like walking 30 minutes a day, like you don't have to make it a rigorous exercise. You don't even have to make it that long. And like just getting outside, you guys live in California, so like you guys have the nice ability to enjoy being outdoors. We're coming to better weather now, but we kind of get like cooped up in the winter, although we've gotten out in the snow, which is nice. But talking with a trusted friend or an adult, I think that's another thing. You guys have each other, so like I think that's always helpful. Journaling, I don't know if any of you guys are into that at all, but that is also like kind of a neat way to just get thoughts down on paper. And if you kind of free write, then you kind of be surprised at what comes out, and it's a way for you to process your feelings, almost like a therapist, but it's in your journal. Routines, I think sticking to routines is very helpful, because it gives you the structure, where if you can kind of set up structure in your life, then you feel a little bit more control of things that feel like they're spinning out of control. And a lot of times depression is coupled with anxiety. And so when you can kind of like create a place where you feel, routine kind of gives us a safe feeling like a safe place. And so they actually say that also when you're grieving, like the best thing you can do is continue with a routine, because it helps stabilize you in this world of chaos. But I think like listening to music, going for walks, like exercising, there you can it's just get enough sleep. That's another thing. Like you guys should be getting probably at least 9 to 10 hours, maybe 11 hours sleep. Yeah, right. I mean, let's go for the 9 hour. Is that a bell, Theo?
Sorry, no, that was like my alarm to go exercise. I
Oh.
forgot to turn it off.
Oh.
Sorry, yeah.
Exercise is a good way though.
Oh, that's perfect. That's perfect timing.
Yeah, I mean,
So does that help? I mean, praying, meditating, like also that, just deep breathing, connecting with others. I think those are really the key things that I think of. They seem simple,
Right.
but they're actually kind of hard to do consistently.
Yeah, I think that's actually really helpful because I think a lot of the times people may not know what to do if they feel down, even if they don't have depression. Maybe they don't know what to do. I had a family member who actually was diagnosed with depression, and they went through a lot, and they struggled a lot. Um, and I think they did some of the things that you kind of mentioned, like talking with people. Um, but I think a lot of it was also kind of a conflict with people that kind of pushed into depression.
Mm-hmm.
So I think part of that was why it became so hard for him to maybe open up about um, certain things. And so I guess I wanted to ask, um, when dealing with more severe versions of depression,
Mm.
is it possible to like completely like I guess get rid of, I'm not sure if
Like
that's the right
heal, kind of
heal,
like
yeah,
so that you don't have
because
depression anymore.
yeah,
That's such a good question. Because I think with, when it's that severe and with any any mental illness, and I don't really love calling it that, but you know, it's something that, you kind of, I think you just battle it every day. You still battle it every day, but it's again sort of like um it doesn't have to overcome your life. You know that it's sort of there, and it could rear its ugly head, but if you have the right coping mechanisms to help you through it, then you know that um, you can create a life that doesn't have to feel so like guided by depression. um I it is individual, and it depends, because okay, so like for speaking for myself, I went through quite a depression in high school, that actually kind of led into college a little bit. But I hit a real low in high school, um, to the point where I actually felt um, kind of like I would want to take my own life. But uh, I I don't know what happened, but like I every day. So for me, I turned to prayer. I know that's not for everybody; it's different for everybody. But um, when I was able to sort of, you know, um, like pray about it, and just sort of think about like, well, just ask God to help me through this, and I'll take it day by day, and I know that there's going to be a day where I'm not going to feel like this anymore, and I'll just keep going until I get to that point. And you know, I don't know if I was severely depressed. I mean, I was severely depressed, but I did not have like, I mean, I don't know. Is that clinical depression? I'm not even sure because nobody was ever there to diagnose me, or like I never went to see a therapist. But it was kind of left to my own devices to manage it. And I honestly, like it was a long road, like because like I said, it followed me into college, but not that severe. Like at some point, I decided like taking my own life was not the right way to go at all. But but I don't feel it anymore at all. I actually feel
Wow.
really
Nice.
strong. I feel stronger for it because I feel like I lived through it. And I also, you know, when my kids were born, um, I I just remember thinking like I this was what I was waiting for, you know, like I would never have been able to feel this happiness and this place in my life had I not gone through that and made it through. And now I feel like I can handle most anything, like, because if I could get through that, then I have the ability to cope and get through anything, I think, you know,
Right.
once you face that sort of severity of depression. So I don't know. I think that is an individual answer for everybody because I know that I've seen patients who, you know, they are clinically depressed and they will probably be on medications for the rest of their lives. And it's just trying to help them function on a daily basis. And then I've seen people, you know, like just come through it. So I think you can. I think you can. But again, it just depends on each individual because there could be chemical imbalances that you know are not something that you can just resolve with music, you know, or
Right.
talking it out, you know. Um, so yeah.
I'm so glad, Ms. Pan, that you you know, came out of this experience learning something new. And I think, you know, I think your input is very valuable because it kind of gave us some kind of insights into like, you know, what a depression is like, how to kind of combat it. And you know, I hope that, you know, anyone who's listening to us today, if you're feeling depressed, just know that we actually do have a small group. You know, that we want to help you guys. That we're not here to judge, but we're here to listen. And so, would you like to talk about that?
Yeah, so our support group is just kind of an intimate place to talk. Not super, it's pretty casual, but um, yeah, we're just trying to build, a intimate kind of community of people whom you can share how you're feeling, share who you are, and hopefully, if you are feeling depressed, you don't have to feel depressed to come to our support group, obviously, but hopefully, we can help you if you decide to join us and have a good time as well, because that is something important. Kind of like Miss Pan said, where interacting with people is important to getting over and depression and staying connected.
Yeah.
Well said.
I think, yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, I guess that is there, do you guys have any more questions? Guys,
Oh, I just want to thank you, Miss Pan, for sharing
yeah.
that story because it's actually really inspiring. I mean, although I don't have depression, I just know that a lot of friends who like think that it's just a long dark tunnel with like no light in the end. But maybe if I have your permission, I'll like share your story with them to like know, help them know like if they get through this, like there could be much more in life to know. So
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. I think the other thing is just taking it day by day. Like I think if you reach too far in the future, it can seem very overwhelming. But if you can kind of get through one day at a time, um, that then you can break it up in little chunks. And if you're like, you know, you made it through the day, you still made it through the day. So like there's one down and then, you know, several to go, but you can get there for sure.
Well,
My alarm ring again. Sorry, I
well,
guess I didn't.
yes, this is a good time to say, you know, thank you for everyone for watching. Thank you, Mrs. Pam, for coming. You know, it's been
Thanks
truly
for
a
having
pleasure.
me.
Thank you
Yeah.
so much for a great insight. And yeah, I guess, you know, if you guys have anything, you know, please check out our Instagram, check out our website. And yeah, I guess we'll see you guys next week. Bye, guys.
All right, bye
Bye.
guys. Thanks.